Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. Indian troops have martyred two more civilians in occupied Jammu and Kashmir's Pulwama district. The youths were targeted during a so-called cordon and search operation. The latest killings comes a day after EU lawmakers voiced concern over rising human rights violations in the occupied valley. Meanwhile, Pakistan has welcomed the EU parliamentarians' letter and called it a global censure of Indian brutalities. At least 13 people have been killed and 45 are injured in a terrorist attack in Iraq's Salahuddin province. Local authorities said ISIS militants attacked a funeral at a village near the town of Yathrib. They said the terrorists also targeted a nearby checkpoint, killing 3 policemen. The US has imposed fresh sanctions on Cuban police force for suppressing the ongoing anti-government demonstrations. Talking to reporters at the White House, President Joe Biden warned of additional punitive measures unless Havana undergoes drastic changes. He said Washington is taking concerted action to bolster the cause of the Cuban people. Brazil has reported more than 900 COVID-19 deaths and over 40,000 new cases in the past 24 hours. Pakistan has registered 65 new deaths and more than 4,900 infections, the highest daily caseload since 29th of April. Globally, the death toll has surpassed 4.2 million, with more than 197 million infections. Former South African cricket star Herschel Gibbs has slammed India for politicizing the game of cricket and its conspiracies against the Kashmir Premier League. In a tweet, Gibbs said the BCCI has threatened to ban his entry into India for any cricket-related work if he joins the KPL. Meanwhile, Pakistan's Foreign Office has termed the move unfortunate and regrettable. And in the Tokyo Olympics, China is leading with 21 gold medals, while Japan follows in second with 17 and the US is on third with 16. The US made a strong start on day 8 of the games, clinching 2 golds in swimming contest. Katie Ledecky took the gold in the women's 800-meter freestyle, while Caleb Dressel won the men's 100-meter butterfly. Well, those were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. Indian troops have martyred 2 more civilians in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The youths were targeted during a so-called cordon and search operation in Pulwama district. Rights activists say the occupying forces have killed at least 400 civilians in the valley since August 2019. Meanwhile, Pakistan has welcomed EU lawmakers' letter on the humanitarian situation in Indian-occupied Kashmir. On Friday, 16 parliamentarians urged action against rights violations in a letter to the European Commission. In a statement, the Foreign Ministry spokesperson said the letter demonstrates global censure of rights violations in the valley. Zahid Hafiz Chaudhry said the UN has discussed the issue at least 3 times, despite New Delhi's fake narrative of so-called normalcy in the valley. For more on this, we have Barrister Tehmoor Malik, international law expert on Kashmir issues from Dubai. Sir, thank you for your time. Mr. Malik, Indian troops have martyred 2 more civilians in occupied Jammu and Kashmir today. What does India want to gain by killing innocent Kashmiris?
Very unfortunate that these events and incidences continue to take place in the IIOJK. And this is clearly a reflection of India's desire to quell dissent in the local population in Kashmir, and especially as it heads towards the second anniversary of the 5th August changes that it made unilaterally in relation to IIOJK. It wants to ensure that there are no protests in the valley.
Right. Mr. Malik, the EU lawmakers have voiced concern over rising human rights violations in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Do you think just raising concerns is enough to stop Indian brutalities in the valley?
It certainly isn't enough. We have had examples of Genocide Watch stating that there are enough early signs of a genocide taking place in the illegally Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, as well as the reports by Human Rights Watch and other organizations. The international lawmakers and policymakers need to consider sanctions on India for this to be taken seriously. Merely raising concerns at their meetings is insufficient at this stage. India has been constantly violating international law and various United Nations resolutions in relation to Kashmir in the last few decades now.
Mr. Malik, Kashmir is to mark second year of the war siege by the Indian military on 5th of August. What does international law say about Indian siege?
Under international law, a siege can be said to have taken place if there's a certain type of isolation of the local population and the territory. There are three types of isolation: physical, psychological, and electronic siege. And in this case, we can say that all three elements exist, and therefore the population and the territory is under siege. The other thing, from an international law point of view, we should say that it's an illegally occupied territory, and under international law, an occupation is a question of fact. Therefore, it doesn't depend that the existence of an occupation is voiced as such by the occupying power or not. It merely requires the situation to meet defined factual criteria in order for it to be classified as an occupation. And therefore, the current situation in IIOJK is an example where there's an occupation by an occupying force. The territory is not Indian territory. There is a hostile army, and India exercises complete authority and effective control over this territory, meeting the criteria for an occupation to be in place. It's an unfortunate situation. The result of all these actions and the 5th August 2019 actions, unilateral actions by India, is primarily to ensure certain demographic changes in the population, which could work to India's benefit in the future. And that's something that's also against international law and international norms, and something that the international community should take notice of, and not just by raising concerns, but by actually passing resolutions and perhaps even imposing sanctions in certain respects on India because of this.
Taimur Malik, thank you for speaking to Indus News. And now we're moving on. At least 13 people have been killed and 45 are injured in a terrorist attack in Iraq's Salahuddin province. Local authorities said ISIS militants attacked a funeral at a village near the town of Yathrib. They said the terrorists also targeted a nearby checkpoint, killing 3 policemen. In a statement, the provincial governor condemned the deadly attack. He said security forces will launch an investigation into the incident to bring the perpetrators to justice. Meanwhile, in a statement, the military confirmed a number of victims but did not provide specific figures. The military said it will provide details once an investigation is complete. The U.S. has imposed fresh sanctions on the Cuban police force for suppressing the ongoing anti-government demonstrations. Cubans have been protesting shortages of basic goods, curbs on civil liberties, and the handling of the pandemic. Talking to reporters, President Joe Biden warned of additional punitive measures unless Havana undergoes drastic changes. He said Washington is taking concerted action to bolster the cause of the Cuban people. The U.S. Treasury Department noted the sanctions also target 2 police force leaders, the Kurbs freeze their assets in the US and bars Americans from carrying out transactions with them. Meanwhile, Republicans and Democrats in Capitol Hill have urged further measures. The US has once again called for an immediate end to ongoing violence in Afghanistan. The statement comes after the attack on a UN compound in Herat killed one guard and injured several others. In a news briefing, the State Department spokesperson condemned the attack by what she called anti-government militants. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the assault may amount to war crimes. Earlier, a Taliban spokesperson said the UN office was caught in a crossfire, but it is safe. Meanwhile, the Taliban have accused the government forces of attacking a hospital in Helmand. In another development, Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar has stressed the need to keep the Afghan peace process alive. Akar also discussed the security of Kabul airport in a phone call with his Afghan counterpart Bismillah Khan Mohammadi. In Pakistan, coronavirus has claimed another 65 lives in the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry says the death tally has reached 23,360. The ministry registered nearly 5,000 cases overnight, the highest daily death toll since the 29th of April. Pakistan's coronavirus positivity rate has jumped over 8% for the first time in over 2 months. There are over 66,000 active cases, while nearly 3,200 people are in critical condition. The country has so far reported over 1,029,000 cases and more than 940,000 recoveries. According to the health authorities, over 29.6 million vaccine doses have been administered in the country so far. Brazil has reported more than 900 COVID-19 deaths and over 40,000 new cases in the past 24 hours. Globally, the death toll has surpassed 4.2 million, with more than 197 million infections. Details in the following report. The World Health Organization says the hard-won gains in the fight against COVID are at risk as the highly transmissible Delta variant spreads. It said infections increased by 80% over the past 4 weeks in most regions of the world, while deaths in Africa have also risen by 80% over the same period. Meanwhile, a study in the US has found that people who get COVID-19 after vaccinations carry the same amount of the virus as those who are unvaccinated. The US has ramped up efforts to get people vaccinated in the face of a Delta variant-fueled surge. President Joe Biden said more guidelines and more restrictions should be expected in all probability. However, Chile has announced it has vaccinated 80% of its adult population.
Completamos un hito.
We have reached a milestone that we set ourselves to reach a vaccination coverage of 80% for people over 18. This means that less than 5 months after starting massive vaccination in Chile, we have reached 80%, only a month after reaching 80% with first doses.
Meanwhile, the tensions over the COVID-19 origin tracing keep escalating. China has listed 4 things for US to prove itself transparent and responsible. It asked the US to publish the data of its early cases, allow probes into Fort Detrick over 200 biolabs overseas, and the University of North Carolina. It also called on the US to release the data on second American military athletes who attended World Military Games in Wuhan in 2019.
In order to shift its responsibility in poor COVID-19 response and out of the political motive of smearing and suppressing others, US has been busy with politicization, stigmatization and turning origin tracing study into its tool. It has made lying, vilifying and coercing its standard practice without any respect for facts, science and justice. Such despicable behavior of the US will leave a stain in the history of the humanity's fight against diseases.
Australia, Japan and the Philippines have tightened curbs yet again over the Delta-driven surge. Over in Africa, the continent's tightest lockdown in Uganda has been eased after 42 days. US President Joe Biden says he is hopeful about the Russian-American strategic stability dialogue. He was responding to reporters' queries about the first round of the talks at the White House. Biden gave a thumbs up, saying he is optimistic as Washington and Moscow are in process of working out their differences. The first round of the dialogue between the two sides took place earlier this week in Geneva. U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman and Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov led their respective delegations. The State Department said the two sides discussed the prospects of establishing new nuclear arms control. The Arab coalition has thwarted a Houthi drone attack on a Saudi commercial ship. In a statement, the coalition said the Iran-backed Houthi militia continues to threaten global shipping lines. The coalition said it has contributed to the safety of ships transiting the Bab al-Mandab Strait. Meanwhile, the U.S. State Department said it is concerned over Houthis' continuous refusal to engage in the ceasefire talks. In a statement, the department said Special Envoy for Yemen, Tim Lenderking, completed his latest visit to the region. It said Lenderking held meetings with the UN, Gulf and Saudi, as well as Yemeni government officials. The statement read the envoy called for an end to fight in Marib and across Yemen. Saudi Arabia has reiterated support for the security of Tunisia. Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan made the remarks after meeting with Tunisian President Kais Saied in Tunis. Tunisia is plunged into a political crisis after President Said's move to dismiss the Prime Minister and freeze parliament. The Saudi prince vowed to back everything to achieve prosperity in the North African country. Meanwhile, Said has rejected the accusations of staging a coup and promised not to become a dictator. This comes as two Tunisian parliament members were arrested following Said's decision to lift their immunity. Earlier, the largest political bloc, Ennahda's chief, has also warned street mobilization in case of no agreement on parliament's return. And now it's time to take a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Israeli troops have injured more than 400 Palestinian protesters in the occupied West Bank. The Palestinian Red Crescent said 8 Palestinians were wounded by live fire. The humanitarian organization said most of those injured needed treatment for tear gas inhalation. It said the Israeli troops also fired rubber-coated bullets at Palestinian protesters at 3 sites. Residents in Beita Junction and Sabih Mountain are holding regular demonstrations against settlements. Earlier, occupying forces shot dead a Palestinian who was standing the funeral of a 12-year-old martyred. Israel has vowed a harsh response over a suspected swarm drone attack on its oil tanker in the Gulf of Oman. A British and Romanian crew members were killed in the attack. Foreign Minister Yair Lapid said he told Britain's Foreign Secretary of the need for a tough response to the incident. In a statement, he said the world must not be silent in the face of Iranian terrorism. Meanwhile, UK's Defence Ministry said its headquarters in the region are conducting investigations. Iran has not officially responded to the accusations. However, Iran's state media quoted sources as saying that the attack was retaliation for an Israeli raid on Syria. The U.S. State Department says it has approved a multi-billion-dollar defense deal with Israel. The potential sale of 18 heavy-lift helicopters values at up to $3.4 billion. In a statement, the department reaffirmed Washington's commitment to the security of Israel. It said assisting Tel Aviv in developing and maintaining a strong self-defense capability is vital to the U.S. interest. The package includes engines, navigation systems, weaponry, support equipment, spares and technical support. Lockheed Martin and General Electric are the prime contractors of the deal. The European Union has adopted a legal framework to impose sanctions on Lebanese officials and entities. Criteria for curbs would include obstructing efforts to form a government, corruption, financial misdeeds, and human rights abuses. In a statement, the EU said listed officials will be subject to a travel ban and asset freeze. It said the bloc is ready to use policy instruments to end the current crisis in Lebanon. Meanwhile, in a tweet, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken hailed the bloc's decision. Blinken said the U.S. supports the formation of a government in a Lebanon that is capable of implementing critical reforms. Lebanon has no proper government in almost a year after the devastating Beirut port explosion on 4th of August. The U.S. Justice Department has dealt twin setbacks to former President Donald Trump. it ordered the release of Trump's tax records and disclosed a memo showing he urged top officials to declare his election defeat corrupt. The House Oversight and Reform Committee released the handwritten notes taken by acting deputy attorney in December. In a phone call, Trump had urged Jeffrey Rosen to say the election was corrupt and leave the rest to him. The call was made days before Rosen was appointed an acting attorney general. Meanwhile, the Justice Department asked the Internal Revenue Service to hand over Trump's tax returns to Congress. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi welcomed the move, calling it a matter of national security. At least 20 people have died in road accidents in Afghanistan Laghman province. Officials say 18 more were injured in the two incidents. Officials said 8 people died after a bus collided with another vehicle in Kargai district's Naranj Bagh village. They said 12 more were killed in another incident in Aziz Khan Cuts village of the same district. Authorities cited the carelessness of drivers as the cause behind both mishaps. In Myanmar, students have protested against the military junta in Mandalay City ahead of the 6-month anniversary of February 1st coup. The participants said they reject any possibility of talks with the military for civilian rule. The students waved red and green flags, holding placards that read, "There's no negotiating in a blood feud." Meanwhile, a US-based right group has accused the armed forces of numerous crimes against humanity following the coup. Human Rights Watch said the security forces have killed over 900 civilians and arbitrarily detained several thousand people. In a statement, the group's Asia director Brad Adams said the responsible should be brought to account. Turkey says authorities have controlled 57 wildfires while 14 are still burning in the country. Talking to reporters, President Tayyip Erdogan said efforts to contain fires are underway. Erdogan said 45 helicopters with at least 5 planes from Russia and Ukraine were deployed in the effort. He said an investigation into the cause of the blazes continues intensively. More than 70 wildfires have broken out this week, killing at least 4 people and forcing thousands to evacuate. Meanwhile, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has expressed solidarity with the government and people of Turkey. In a tweet, Khan expressed grief on the loss of lives and offered help to Ankara. Saudi Arabia has invited Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan to the Middle East Green Initiative Summit in October. In a statement, the Prime Minister's office said Khan has accepted the invitation. The invitation was formally delivered by the Saudi ambassador Nawaf bin Saeed Ahmed Al Maliki at Khan's office. The PM office said the Saudi initiatives align closely with the Khan's Clean and Green Pakistan and 10 billion tree tsunami projects. It noted that 2 countries are collaborating closely to develop synergies in their climate change-related strategies. Riyadh aims at cutting carbon emissions by 60% and planting about 50 billion trees. Pakistan Army has organized the Women's Multinational Joint Medal Parade in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The military's media wing said the UN Force Commander, Lieutenant General Marcos Afonso da Costa, witnessed the ceremony. It said the event was held at Pakistan Army Contingent Headquarters. ISPR said the units from China, Indonesia and Uruguay participated along with the Pakistani contingent. It added that unarmed combat drills, cultural shows and the display of military bands were also part of the event. The mission headquarters, force commander and UN hierarchy have lauded Pakistan for conducting the event. In Pakistan, heavy rainfall and thunder shower are expected in most parts of the country in the next 12 hours. Met officials predicted isolated heavy falls in northeast Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa during the period. KP authorities say the rains can cause urban floods in Peshawar and landsliding in upper parts and hilly areas. For the capital Islamabad, the federal government has sought the support of army troops and navy divers. The government says it took the decision in wake of expected floods in the Koring and Sohan rivers due to heavy rains. The Met Department forecast possible rain in several cities of Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Russia has blamed a software glitch for throwing the International Space Station out of control. The Russian space agency Roscosmos said human inattentiveness could also have been the reason. It said due to the software failure, a direct command was mistakenly implemented to turn on the module's engines for withdrawal. Agency's head, Dmitry Rogozin, said there was also some euphoria after successful docking and everyone got relaxed. He noted work is underway to activate a newly attached Navcom module at the center of the mishap. Jet thrusters on the Russian research module inadvertently reignited a few hours after it had docked to the space station. It caused the entire station to pitch out of its normal flight position with 7 crew members aboard. A U.S. government watchdog has sided with NASA over its decision to pick a single lunar lander provider. It rejected a protest filed with Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin and defense contractor Dynetics Incorporation. The companies challenged a $2.9 billion award to Elon Musk's SpaceX for the lander. They argued that the U.S. Space Agency was required to make multiple awards. However, the Government Accountability Office denied the arguments that NASA acted improperly. In a statement, NASA said the decision will allow establishing a timeline for the first crewed landing on the moon is over 50 years. Meanwhile, Blue Origin said the watchdog was not able to address the issues with NASA's decision due to limited jurisdiction. 2 lakes in Argentina's coastal region of Patagonia have turned fluorescent pink due to unexplained phenomena. The environmentalists fear phenomenon was caused by industrial contamination. This report has more. 2 water resources in Argentina's coastal region of Patagonia have turned fluorescent pink, raising questions on government's measures to curb pollution. According to posts circulating on social media, the officials recently uncovered a truck dumping waste in the watershed. The authorities are unaware whether the sudden change in color of the lakes is harmful. The environmentalists are more concerned. The activist Pablo Lara said Pink Lagoon uncovers the lack of treatment of waste dumped in a lake. The officials are investigating the cause and potential damage to the lakes but have yet to arrive at any conclusions. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. China's official purchasing managers index has edged down to 50.4 in July. However, the manufacturing PMI has remained above the 50 mark for 17 straight months row. The National Bureau of Statistics attributed the decline to the equipment maintenance period and extreme weather impacts in some areas. The PMI for large enterprises narrowed down by 1.3% from last month, while for small and medium-sized entities slipped by 0.8 percentage points. Meanwhile, the country's non-manufacturing PMI also narrowly edged down to 53.3 in July. A reading above 50 indicates expansion in activities, while a reading below reflects contraction. Former South African cricket star Herschel Gibbs has slammed India for politicizing the game of cricket. In a tweet, he exploded over Indian conspiracies against the Kashmir Premier League. Herschel Gibbs has exposed India propaganda and conspiracies against the Kashmir Premier League. Gibbs said it is completely unnecessary for India to bring its political agenda with Pakistan into the equation. He said the Indian Cricket Board is trying to prevent him from participating in the KPL. Gibbs added that BCCI is threatening him, saying they won't allow him entry into India for any cricket-related work. The South African cricketer is currently serving as the coach of Pakistan's Super League's franchise, Karachi Kings. Meanwhile, Pakistan has condemned the Indian attempts to politicize the game. In a tweet, Information Minister Fawad Chaudhry slammed the Modi government for jeopardizing cricket for its nefarious politics. Foreign Office spokesperson Zahid Hafiz Chaudhry also termed the move unfortunate and regrettable. For more on this, we are joined by Leena Aziz, sports analyst from Islamabad. Thank you for your time. Ms. Leena, former South African cricket star Herschel Gibbs has slammed India for politicizing the game of cricket. India's propaganda campaign against Pakistan and its sports event has once again been exposed by an international cricketer. What is your take on this?
Yeah, I think Herschel Gibbs is absolutely right when he says that the game shouldn't be politicized and India shouldn't, stoop to such small level, gossip kind of thing, But then India is always known to have done that with Pakistan. Even the 2009 attack against the Sri Lankans, I mean, many suspected that India had its hidden hand in that whole event, unfortunate event. But right now, I mean, with this Kashmir League, it's not such a big league. It's only starting. India shouldn't say anything to any player. But the name Kashmir, I think, sort of makes them to do things that they shouldn't be doing. And of course, as you know, that Herschel Gibbs works for Karachi Kings in the PSL. And Indians have been previously also trying to blackmail players not to come to PSL. And if they come to PSL, they won't let them play the IPL, which is much more lucrative than the PSL. But then that didn't work, and that was kind of sorted out. But once again, they're stooping to such, such mean sort of propaganda, and it shows how small-natured they are. Because it shouldn't affect them at all. I mean, Kashmir League is something which is just starting. It is just basically to benefit the people of Kashmir and more earnings for players. Although in hindsight, I feel that the Pakistan didn't need a Kashmir League. Easily, Pakistan could have added a Kashmir team to the existing PSL. And that is just my view, other than what India said. What India said, I very strongly condemn it.
Right. Ms. Leena, Herschel Gibbs says the BCCI has threatened to ban his entry into India for any cricket-related work if he joins the Kashmir Premier League. Isn't it against the international cricket rules?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's against human rules. I mean, human beings shouldn't be blackmailing people. If anything, a big organization like the Indian Cricket Board shouldn't be blackmailing players on such small things. It's a trivial matter, and they shouldn't be doing that. It just only reflects very, very badly on a board led by a great like Ganguly. I mean, Ganguly, Saurav Ganguly is a great guy, and I didn't expect such such kind of mean statements coming out of an Ganguly-led cricket board. I mean, I'm really saddened.
Right, Leena. In 2019, India militarized the game after its players wore army camouflage caps during a match against Australia. Now, India is threatening international players for joining the Kashmir Premier League. Can India face sanctions by ICC for its actions against sports?
Well, that largely depend upon the Pakistan Cricket Board. If they take the case to the ICC and take it strongly, and they don't take their foot off the pedal, because Pakistanis are known to take their foot off the pedal. They take up a case very strongly, and in a few days it will disappear, or they would let the Indians would also pressurize the ICC, and Pakistan would take their foot off the pedal. I suggest that the Pakistan Cricket Board, led by Mr. Mani, should take up this case very strongly to the ICC and not take take their foot off the pedal, keep pressurizing the ICC to take a justified decision on that. They should not succumb to the Indian pressure, and the Pakistan Cricket Board should be relentless in taking this case up to the ICC and keep pressurizing the ICC till a just decision comes their way in favor of Pakistan.
Leena Aziz, thank you for speaking to Indus News. And now we're moving on. In cricket, Pakistan will face the West Indies in the second T20 of the 4-match series in Guyana today. Earlier, the first match ended without a result due to rain. It was first reduced to 9 overs per side, in which the hosts managed to score 85 for the loss of 5 wickets. Skipper Kiran Pollard was their highest scorer with unbeaten 22 runs off 9 balls. However, the visitors could not come to bat because of the rain and the match was abandoned. Rain might affect today's game as well, as showers are predicted throughout the week. The pitch in Guyana is more suited to the bowlers with an average score of under 140 in the last 7 2020s. And now we're moving on. In Tokyo Olympics, China continues to assert its dominance as it extended its lead atop medal standings with 21 golds. Host Japan follows in second place with 17, while the US is on third with 16. This report has more on the Games. Day 8 of the Games is scheduled to feature a total of 21 gold medal events. The US made a strong start in the day, clinching 2 golds in swimming contest. Katie Ledecky took the gold in the women's 800-meter freestyle, while Caleb Dressel won the men's 100-meter butterfly. Britain won the gold in the mixed 4x100-meter medley relay in a world record time of 3 minutes and 37 seconds. Kaylee McEwen bagged Australia's 7th gold in the pool by winning the women's 200-meter backstroke. China's Yanshu Liu secured a gold medal in the women's RSX windsurfing competition. Liu Xiaojun led China to its 21st gold after sealing his victory in the men's 81-kilogram weightlifting. China also dominated at the diving pool, taking the top 2 spots in the semi-finals of the women's 3-meter springboard. Meanwhile, Spain won its first gold of the Games after Alberto Fernandez and Fatima Galvez secured a win in mixed team trap shooting. Belarus also grabbed its first gold medal as Ivan Litvinovich powered to victory in men's trampoline. In shooting, Switzerland's Nina Christen won women's 50-meter 3-position rival for her second gold medal. Elsewhere, tennis world number 1 Novak Djokovic's Olympic journey came to a disappointing end. The Serb lost his bronze medal contest to Spain's Pablo Carreño Busta by 2-1. Now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.